Moving along into another Baetis imitation. This is going to be my Mercury Baetis, and I tie it on a Umpqua 200R. And you'll notice I've got the hook actually slanted down a bit there, and that's because it's going to make tying in the tail a little bit easier. And I'm going to use, again, a extra small Mercury bead, and I'm going to take a jam knot, about 50% point on the hook shank there. Advance the thread backward, and we're going to tie in a tail out of some black hackle. And typically I want the tail on this to be about 2/3 of a shank length long. So I can adjust that and get that exactly where I want by sliding those fibers backwards. And like most Baetis imitations, we want to keep them thin and sparse, as we discussed on the pheasant tail. So I tend to like the superfine dubbing for this because it allows me to keep that abdomen very, very thin, very, very sparse. Typically, we start to see our Baetis starting to hatch towards the latter part of March and extending into the first part of April. Bring that dubbing right up towards the bend there. I'm going to readjust that hook. And once we start to see consistent duns hatching every afternoon, typically between 1 and 3 p.m., we fish a lot of Baetis nymphs, particularly in the shallow riffles and the transitional zones. And those bright and sunny days, we don't have the dry fly fishing that we all dream about, but the nymph fishing can be spectacular. So that's when you want to have a thorough assortment of Baetis nymphs. One of the distinguishing features of a Baetis nymph prior to emergence is a dark wing pad. So I'm going to use a little bit of Zelon, black Zelon, and I'm going to secure that behind the bead and then advance that thread back to about the 50% point on the hook shank. The thorax is going to be a little bit of the superfine dubbing once again, not getting too carried away, because we want to keep this thing thin and sparse. Dub that forward right towards the Mercury bead. We're going to bring that wing pad over the top. And one thing you'll notice on those Baetis nymphs that are just ready to emerge, they start to get their wing pad almost looks like it's ready to split open. It gets that little hump there. And so this Zelon pulled over the thorax area represents that very, very nicely. Typically I'll cut that Zelon, and then I'm going to divide this into 2 separate bundles. Take a material locking wrap there, another material locking wrap there. And then the final step is going to be to grab my Sharpie pen once again and color that black before I whip finish behind the bead. The final step is to trim the legs to length. So we'll come in, we'll rest the scissors on our thumb, we'll snip the legs there, and then we'll use our finger to snip the legs on the other side. And then you have a completed Mercury Baetis. Typically fish them in sizes 18 down to 22 in the spring. They're typically 1 to 2 sizes bigger in the spring in comparison to the olives that we see in the fall. So in the fall, I'll downsize to a size 24 to try to imitate the pseudo clone or the tiny blue wing olive that hatches that time of year.